Okay,
when they say there's nothing new under the sun, there really is nothing new under the sun.
But we need to change that, including how we say sorry. I was reading about the history of the word sorry, by the way, because you know I love to do
a deep dive.
To do a deep dive. It was from an old English word called sarig. Sarig, if you think about it, it sounds like an accent from the broader UK, but it means distressed or full of sorrow or grieved. But it doesn't mean I'm full of sorrow, you. It's evolved. I'm full of sorrow for you. That's how sorry came. Now, I'll make some reference to some of my notes because I think it's important. But on national TV a few days ago, President William Ruto began with what was supposed to be an apology, but it began with, "If I have done anything wrong." But let's be clear, and we talked about it then, an apology that begins with "if" isn't an apology, it's more of a deflection, a refusal to take full responsibility. Real apologies often come with three things: remorse, course correction, and empathy. We haven't really witnessed this. And at some point, we'll also make reference to page 15 of the Daily Nation, where Macharia Gaitho talks about what needs to happen next. Sorry means accountability and not gaslighting. A head of state apologizing to a grieving, protesting, exhausted nation needs to recognize young people are still being abducted in the middle of the night. In fact, as recently as over the weekend, peaceful protesters are met with brutal force. Public money continues to vanish into private funds. Families are suffering in silence while being told that they are the problem. Women and girls are being killed in their homes, on the streets, and in broad daylight. And the response is always, "We're investigating." That's not governance, that's gaslighting in a tailored suit. How is that sorry? Sorry isn't a soundbite. It's not a press conference line designed to pacify anger. If someone burns your house and says, "If I hurt you, I'm sorry," then walks away, that's not remorse, that's an insult with a smile. But if they say, "I burned your house, I was wrong, I will rebuild it, and I've taken steps to ensure it never happens again," that is an apology. So, sorry without change is just another lie. And I think we've heard enough of those, so miss me with that.
Gaslighting in a tailored suit.
Complete with a tie.
Complete with
and
a tie.
Cufflinks.
And cufflinks.
But sorry.
Thank you, Jano. Thank you for missing with that.
There's a lot more I haven't gone into. I thought we could do that in the hour, including what other countries did following sorry. Countries have their blemishes. I'm going to be saying that from now on. I'll use that word. But some of them were really intentional about saying sorry, and this is what we've gone ahead to do. That's then an apology with follow-through. Macharia Gaitho.
This is page 15.
This is page 15, the opinion piece, because he says, and then we'll get into it, but I just thought it was interesting that we were missing with that, and this piece was there. He just talked about President William Ruto's public apology for the wrongs committed against Gen Z. In just a few moments, we'll run that clip from the pastor who spoke. Against Gen Z protesters, it's an important acknowledgement that his regime is guilty of horrific human rights abuses, but it's a vague and generalized apology, and it's worthless unless accompanied by true and accurate disclosure of all the abductions, illegal confinements, torture, and forced disappearances and murders. With that must also come the sacking, arrest, and prosecution of all officers in his government who've betrayed their oath of office by turning state security organs into criminal organizations that terrorize citizens. I wonder if we can just run that clip and be reminded about what it was that he was asked to do. And I don't know whether Philo will also run now the clip where the president said he's sorry. But let's just run that and then come back and have that conversation with Latif and Mariam. Let's see if that clip is ready.
Wouldn't it be beautiful if leaders would stand up and say to our Gen Zs, "We had you arrested. And we know that had to be traumatizing. And we're sorry."
However, equally, we respectfully request our children also to respect authority.
If there is any misstep, we apologize
he'd need to do better than just say, children, we are sorry. First of all, calling us children instead of adults. Personally, I feel it's just another headline moment because, first of all, it has taken this long to just get an apology.
Not only taken long, technically a year, if we think about it, but it took somebody prompting you to say sorry. Mariam and Eric.
It took someone prompting you. Where do I begin? The genuineness of an apology, you've clearly put out what an actual apology requires. But even beyond that, at that level of leadership, it requires accountability of a different sort. When I'm apologizing to you, Jano, I'm sorry I stepped on you. It won't happen again. I'm sorry I did this. When it's this way, it's like Pole Basi. Mashari Regado is right. Where's the justice? Where is the prosecution of all officers in government who have betrayed their oath of office? Where is the sacking and the arrest? Where is the inquiry? Where is the resigning and stepping aside because these are gross violations of our constitution? That's accountability for me as far as this is concerned. So I do agree when he says, yeah, too little, too late. 100%, but even then still not done right. So this for me was someone called you out in public and said, wouldn't it be nice if we said sorry? And because one, it's an American and love the Americans, and two, he's a preacher, love the preachers. Yeah, I was like, okay, I'll say sorry. I'll say sorry, but no real intent.
Yeah, it was a public, it was live TV. Yeah. It's not like it was edited. It's like, we cut a part alisema ati tuseme sorry. Ebukata edit. It was live, and I think that was important. I think
we'll discuss the sorry and the sorry state of affairs and all of that, but at the end of the day, we must not get caught up in it. Sometimes you have to just, you do the healing, you do everything yourself. Don't wait for the apology. Don't wait for the person to take responsibility. Don't wait for you do those things yourself. You hold them accountable. Yeah. An apology, neither here nor there without accountability.
That's really powerful. Just before Latif comes in, is that sometimes you never really get the closure, an apology that you needed. So will you be held hostage by it? And you're right, because sometimes you may not. So how are you doing that yourself? And I remember recently sharing in a video that sometimes when you term the person who hurt you, you're like, this is an enemy and they've done the wrong thing. Are you giving them too much power over you? Because the word enemy or the fact that you didn't say sorry, does that mean there's still some power over you that keeps you from moving forward? It doesn't invalidate that it's painful. It doesn't invalidate that you deserve closure, you deserve an apology. But should that not be forthcoming, then how do you emancipate yourself, but still move better and be the person who says, you know what, I'm going to hold myself to a higher standard. If I've wronged someone, I will say sorry. And by the way, I don't think it's human nature that sorry comes out easily. There's a bit of pride. It's a bit of pride that you have to fight every day to be like, I don't know, for me, I think, as I've gotten older, yeah, sometimes you're just like, you messed up. I messed up, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Own up.
Own up to it. Harder, it frees you, still leaves you feeling some type of way. I failed. I wasn't the better person. In fact, it was so wrong of me to do that. Maybe I'm a bad person. You deal with those things with your committee that's in your mind. You sit down and unpack it.
Yeah.
But I think what we lack in this country, in this world, a lot of leaders struggle to say sorry. And that then keeps the pain in their citizens, simply because saying sorry comes with a sense of vulnerability, which, remember, vulnerability has always been platformed as negative. It's shifting now. If you say sorry, you have failed, you're the bad guy. No. If you say sorry, actually, you've opened up a conversation to begin thinking through reconciliation.
Yeah.
But that isn't forthcoming with leadership on the continent, and that's what's shifting things.
I think, first of all, I must agree with you that what the president said last week was not an apology. It was just a statement that he made off the cuff. It was an off-the-cuff remark in reaction to the preacher and what the preacher had said. You know, wouldn't it be nice for us to apologize? Yeah, we're sorry. And that was it. It was just that, a statement. Then I look back into, so what is it that an apology would look like? And you've said, okay, all those elements of components of an apology. And then I ask myself, so culturally, we don't apologize, especially collectively. You don't apologize for a collective mistake, even if you're the head of a family and your child went and did something. You find it sort of difficult to just go and start apologizing because my family wronged your family. And because there's the implication of that comes with it, right? So I asked myself, so there's William Ruto the man, and there's William Ruto the president and head of state. And what that would mean in terms of making an apology. Would apology be coming just like that from a president unilaterally deciding, let me apologize? Or should it follow a process where the state is apologizing to the people that it wronged? Because the people are wronged by the state.
Right.
When people have gone to court to talk about the issues of, you know, the Nyayo torture chambers and all, it's the state that was found culpable, not Daniel Arap Moi. It's a state. So it's about the state apologizing. So how does the state apologize? What process does the state follow? In several instances we've seen, for example, in South Africa, with Desmond Tutu, the TJRC, it was the state having a mechanism that has now this thing of reviewing, let's look, let's open up our wounds, let's discuss them. Start with the truth,
then
justice, and then reconciliation. And in between there's apology. Right?
Yeah.
At the point of reconciliation.
Right.
It's truth, justice, and acknowledgement, and seeking reconciliation. In Kenya, we had the same TJRC, and we discussed it the other day.
Yes.
Report handed over. We have not, the state of Kenya has not dealt with the issue of apologies. In Rwanda, there was the Kashasha court that was set up, right? Again, looking back into 1994, the genocide, and coming back and saying, okay, so can we as a people then face each other? Can individuals apologize to individuals? And that's the closest they came to. You know, individuals, I stand up and I say, so and so, you were my neighbor for so long. I saw you doing this. And then the person stands up and says, I am sorry. That was a direct apology. But Kagame, did Kagame apologize? Was there an issue like, you know, yeah.
No.
So I was not, I was
Yeah.
a leader of the rebel group, so maybe I was not directly, but right? Was there like a level of the state apologizing to its citizens? So I sit back and I ask myself, okay, so what should we expect from President Ruto?
That's a great question. No, I think you've drawn now from President Ruto, I don't know, accountability. From the state, there's a process there that you've started drawing out. And you started with, like, for the TJRC in South Africa, what that looked like. Was there actual reconciliation? Where does compensation come in? Jano, I don't know if in your deep dive into sorry, you found ways in which you thread from a person to a state saying sorry, and what that looks like. That's
a good one. Should have probably dug out more, but there are sort of like some documented.
South Africa.
Yeah, South Africa. Oh, I was going to move to Germany. South Africa, what I had was the TJRC.
Yes.
For Germany's ongoing atonement for the Holocaust, right? Which was decades ago.
Right.
Germany criminalized Holocaust denial, right? Preserved memory through education and continues to pay reparations.
Yes.
To your point. So their sorrow is not just in legacy, it's in law. And I think that is what, for me, that's a prime example of sorry. Some people might say, isn't it tedious? It just spans decades. It's like, no, it's not. It's a legacy thing. I don't know that Rwanda and South Africa, because remember, saying sorry around hate crimes and where murder and all has existed, it's dark, it's painful, and a lot of people, I think, jump between denial and acceptance of it. we're seeing a lot of things coming up in South Africa right now, for example, right? We're seeing a certain white minority, they want to platform as majority, saying, Aki Gai, we are going to go to America as refugees because we're being killed in our land. And it's created a big conversation. On the one hand, there's been comedy, including white South Africans doing this thing where they're saying, I'm sipping, I'm having my breakfast in bed, oh my God, because I'm so poor. So they're pushing back against their peers. Yeah. And at the same time, I think Africans, we deal with trauma through comedy. I don't know, we need to unpack that. But this, I think, is a result of a system that was so divisive and ugly that now we're seeing a result of sometimes having truth, justice, and reconciliation shouldn't be for a season. I think it should be for life. It's not to remind you of the horrible thing your ancestor did or was done to you, but it's to remind you that there's still a healing process that's probably going to go on for life. And I think as a result of the lack of that, we are now beginning to see some things come out. Racial division is still really strong. Now you're finding the minority feeling like they've been pushed to a corner. You're finding sometimes that black leaders, even though that they've said we won't do it again, singing songs talking about we need to kill them, literally, shoot the Boer. That's what they're saying. That's a sign of an unhealed nation.
For sure.
And so I think if we are going to say truth, justice, and reconciliation, it's so heartbreaking that that document was just shelved. Because maybe, who knows where we could have been now if somebody just said, I'm sorry. This happened during post-election violence. I'm sorry. If neighbors could turn to each other and say, you did this to me. And I think as a result now, where we are is everything has kind of like bubbled to the surface. And that's why people are like, no, we actually demand an apology. And in fact, date it back to the 60s.
Right.
Go way beyond that and then start. So to your question, Mariam, about certain nations, there are those who are doing it as part of a legacy, where there are reparations, where there is, even saying it, even speaking, even denying it is illegal.
Yes.
That for me is true justice. Whether it's perfect, probably not.
Yeah.
But that intentionality to publicly say, these are the steps we're taking to make sure our citizens never feel insecure again.
Yes.
That is apology. Canada also did something similar with an apology to the indigenous people in 2008, where the Prime Minister at the time, Stephen Harper, publicly acknowledged, this is what he said, we were wrong. He did not say if we were wrong.
We were wrong.
He said we were wrong. We were wrong, and it was followed again by Truth and Reconciliation Commission and reparations.
Right.
So it has happened, and it's
there's
possible.
A formula even.
And there's a formula. Acknowledgement, remorse, empathy. And then as a result, this is what we intend to do.
Right.
And I think the next best step is we intend to follow this through so that even your children's children continue to recognize that we did you wrong.
Just that justice part. I said this when we were speaking about the TJRC report as well, that the nation is built on just injustice, layers and layers and layers of injustices. And like you've said, they're going to bubble up and come to the surface a bit more. I think this would be a good place to start, to have someone take accountability now, to see people get prosecuted and go through the entire process of the law for breaking the law, for going against the Constitution. And this goes to even back to the chain of command conversation, and to have the people who gave those orders or who are in charge of those policing units that did these atrocities, to have those be held accountable as well. Because at the end of the day, someone does have to be held accountable. And someone, high up enough. Pull that thread as far as you would like to take it. That for me would be a great start for us. Two, I don't know that we need to do a formal commission or anything of the sort, specifically with what President Ruto was apologizing about. It's just to hold those who perpetrated the abductions, the killings, accountable, to have them go through a court of law, to have their families compensated, and those who are alive and who are illegally arrested, who are injured, have them compensated. That's the reparations part. I don't think there's a reconciliation part because, how do I put it? Who are we reconciling with in this case? Yeah, that's just my thought process.
Maybe it's just the seeking of justice. If you just do a casual Google search of Uhuru apologizes, you will find former President Uhuru Kenyatta apologizing many times. So again, ask that question. Was it a sorry apology? Was it a heartfelt apology? So for example, in 2017, the Nairobi City County officially declared Mukuru as a special planning area, stopping any further development for 2 years. Okay? Now, in 2022, President Uhuru Kenyatta apologized to the residents of Mukuru over the recent inhumane demolitions. Speaking for the first time after the demolitions, the head of state said, "I know there are many who lost their houses and I have never gone back to visit the area. On behalf of those who were found guilty, since some of them were government officers, I ask for forgiveness." Is that an apology? People lost their homes.
It's a start. It's a start. I know. What does he say? I know there.
I know there are people who lost homes and have never gone back there. I know there are some people who were in government and they were found culpable for this. I ask for forgiveness.
And then those who are culpable and the homes which the people who no longer
those
have
who are
homes.
found guilty, so it's a court process. Those who are found guilty have been found guilty through a process.
Yeah.
Now he's saying, I know some of them were in government and I ask for forgiveness.
I think it's a start.
Yeah.
We've not gotten
This
to
other example. At the height of the COVID-19, the government imposes curfews. And then there's how the police treat people.
Yeah.
The president says, I want to apologize to all Kenyans for some excesses that were conducted, but I want to assure you that if we work together, if we all understand that this problem needs all of us, and we pull in the same direction, we'll overcome. So here he was apologizing because of the police excesses. I want to apologize for some excesses that were conducted.
Again, only 1/3 of an actual apology. Where is the accountability holding for the excesses? Where is where's the follow through? Right? You've said that you apologize, fine. You've not taken accountability for your part. You've not helped find justice for those excesses that were committed by security forces under your tenure. So at least, I'm at least teasing him, yes, but he says, I want to apologize, I'm apologizing. It's not ifs or buts.
Yes.
So that's the correct part of the apology. The rest of it, still lacking.
Yeah, so to your point, it's a start because you're acknowledging and you're not saying if. Man, I just think about, you just alluded to it in terms of reparations, etc. A few weeks ago in the news, we had IDPs who are like, we've never gotten anything. And maybe that's why this particular faux apology, because that's what it was, stung. Because it's like, by the way, if you're going to open that Pandora's box, we're going to go down memory lane.
Yeah.
We're going to backtrack and say sorry. We're going to even say we're going to now implement this TJRC report. That's what needs to happen. But the truth is, nobody has said sorry to those who lost their lives and their homes from as far back. Let's even talk about the post-election violence. Nobody has said sorry.
Well, President Uhuru actually did.
And followed through with.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where we say, an apology is an apology. I think in this instance, it's just not enough.
So there needs to be something that follows the apology. If it's on this national level. Okay. So here it is. Remember Tina Alai, when we were talking about the TJRC, she reminded us that President Uhuru Kenyatta went to Parliament in 2015.
Yeah, 2015.
And he apologized. He said, to this day, we are still plagued by all actions that have at times failed to recognize the civil and human rights of Kenyan citizens. These have shaken the nation, excluded some Kenyans from the full promise of citizenship, and fractured our nationhood. In many ways, Kenyans and humanity overall have benefited from restorative justice, an approach that's deeply rooted in our cultural and historical realities, particularly when such conflicts have a communal and political dimension, right? And as he apologized for this, for post-election violence, he announced the setting up of a 10 billion shillings restorative justice fund in accordance with the recommendations of the TJRC,
right?
Saying over the next 3 years, this is going to be established in accordance with the recommendations of TJRC. So he's not even waiting for Parliament to discuss this, to adopt it. He's like, okay, I am going ahead to say, we establish a fund, 10 billion shillings fund. I'm apologizing. here is a fund for restorative justice, mechanism to follow. Mechanism did not follow. But at that point,
fair enough,
on that day,
Yeah.
did the president apologize? Can we say that this was an apology?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
We apologize for doing this, and therefore this is what's going to follow. Is a complete, not complete. It's an almost complete apology, because then the true apology comes into implementing said restoration fund and saying this is going to be more. We're going to make sure everybody. Then somebody can feel like, okay, I feel seen, I feel heard. My trauma is not invalid. Otherwise, what you're saying is you'll be fine.
Janelle, sorry, I'm sorry I stepped on you.
No,
it won't happen
okay.
again.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys have history. You've been carrying this all this time.
In our previous life.
Right? We were just
In the previous
stepping
life.
on each other's shoes. But
Latif was like, do I intervene? Do I leave it? You were giving an example. I thought you were going to say sorry to interfere in what you were going to say.
love it.
Okay, Mariam, go ahead. You were saying.
So I'm like, yeah, Jano, I'm sorry I stepped on you. It won't happen again. And then 5 seconds later, another one on your white sneakers. And then 5 minutes later, another one, which is more or less what we've done.
That's true.
The injustices haven't stopped. They've taken different shapes, for sure. But the idea of injustice has not stopped. And then the idea of either state machinery or state powers or whatever being used against people in times of political tension hasn't changed. So it's taking a different form, but it is more or less the same thing. So that's changed behavior part of an apology, that correction part. No, hatujafika hapo bado.
No.
Can I tell you, I actually think Uhuru Kenyatta overstepped by going to Parliament to apologize and to set up this fund.
Okay.
Okay? Because it's not Uhuru who's apologizing. It's the state that's apologizing. Now, so he is the head of state, granted. Okay? But I think this is a case where some due process. So there was a TJRC report. The president should have pushed for the discussion and adoption of the TJRC report. And then, once it's adopted, then he can come and formally, as head of state, apologize and follow through the process of what is recommended, all the recommendations and implementation of the TJRC report.
Right.
Just that there's a mechanism that goes beyond the person of Uhuru Kenyatta into the office of the head of state. Right?
I see what you mean, because this is escapist. It's kind of, it's almost running away from the accountability.
It's like saying,
because,
and then they could have found, but there's nothing to hold anyone
nothing
to account
tangible.
for not lack of implementation of this 10 billion shillings fund.
And if we go by what Tina spoke about and what she said, it's very true that those recommendations would hold a lot of people to actual account. Big names that you keep hearing here and there and there and here and here and there. So I think that, not looking at it critically, it was escapist. We have Kadere on the line. He's from Kitale and he wants to weigh in on our conversation. Good morning, Kadere.
Good morning, guys.
How are you?
I'm good like you. My name is Patrick Kadere from Kitale.
Yes.
Let me say this. Kwanza na congratulate NTV Brian Obuya. Anafanya kazi nzuri sana. I like that guy. Why lie? Nampenda sana, anafanya kazi poa sana. Hata kwa hiyo awadi angekuwa number 1, mbona hawakumweka? Hapo iko mistake.
Kweli anafanya kazi safi.
Anafanya kazi safi sana, nampenda. Hata kesho namtegea sana. Wache niende kwa mjadala. Mimi naona statement ya rais hatukuona hapo vile mmeandika hapo. Amesema if we wrong you. So inamaanisha president hata amechanganyikiwa, ajui kwamba alikosea wananchi. Anasema kama mtu hawezi kukukosea alafu anasema kama nimekukosea unisamee. Huwezi msamea. Lazima usamee ile mtu ametubu dhambi zake, amesema niliua watu 100, nilirepu watu, nilifanya hivi. Huyo ndio mtu inafaa umsamee, because ametoa kwa roho yake, analia. Anarudi chini akilia, munisamee, utamsamea. Hata kwa mfano BKG alisema if I make a mistake naomba msamaha, hakusamehewa. So walikataa statement yake, bunge ikakataa, na alisema kama nimekosea mnisamee. Hakusamehewa. Kwa hivyo hata kama mimi si Gen Z, mimi ni millennial, mimi siwezi samea rais. Rais hajaomba msamaha. msamaha lazima ikuje na vitendo, alipe compensation wale watu wameuawa, wale wameresiwa, wale wamechomewa manyumba, alipe, na ikuwe ni national holiday, watu wanyamaza hata masaa fulani to memory the people who died. But you cannot come and say, if I wronged you, apology. Apology hiyo ni ile ya, hata aliomba msamaha kuhusu ya ile sherehe ilikuwa ya jinsi hiyo. Huyo jua alikuwa nani alisema, msamee vijana, mtetee vijana, ndio akasema if, hakutoa kwa roho yake. So that is the pretender. Hiyo ni pretender. Lazima aseme kwa national TV kama MTV hivi tukue ni national day. Aseme kwa roho yake. Sio kufiksiwa na mtu mwingine alafu anasema. So that one is not apology ile inakubalika. Kwa hivyo rais bado hajaomba msamaha. Aombe msamaha, tumsamee. Na hata kumsamea ni hiari. Tena mtu anaweza kuomba msamaha umsamee kwa hiari. Si lazima.
Ni ukweli.
Ni hiari yako msamee ama ukatae.
Ni ukweli by the way.
So mimi naona mimi naomba president ya advisor wake ndio the failure wake ni wapinye advisor wake ndio wanamsaidia. Lazima kuja tuombe msamaha vizuri. Na mimi hata naomba Brian ukuya toe tena maneno tuone kwa ukweli ile msamaha yake haina value. That's my point.
Thank you, Kadere, and you're absolutely right. He's spoken to just so many of the things we've talked about there that's improper. Ni ukweli, obviously sema kama nimekukosea, ati hiyo ni apology, that's one, that's very true. He's also spoken to the fact that changing the behavior would be like an actual true part of the apology.
Yeah.
And
that
then,
beautiful element of a day of commemoration, that was very deep and profound. Just a day to reflect. Sit in what you could have caused or what was caused to you. We're just, our culture, I know it's changing, but again, and Eric alluded to it, we're not good at apologies. And what's happening now...
languages. I think culturally,
yeah.
Sorry to interject, culturally, even our languages don't have a direct apology.
Wow.
What do you mean?
It doesn't just come
Think about in
Pole.
Kikuyu. Say sorry in Kikuyu.
Johera. Right? It's sorry. Dekera. Nisamehe. But it doesn't just come at it. If you just say pole.
I was thinking of a quota, then I got mixed up. But yeah.
It's considered rude if you just come and say pole.
Okay.
It's a statement, right?
Okay.
And in that statement, when you just coming to apologize and saying pole, you'll tell all these stories.
Right.
I didn't mean to do it. Sikuwa nataka nilifanya hivi. Basically, and that's where the karma comes in.
Right.
I think if you just think about how apologies are given, it is nilifanya hivi, sikuwa nataka nikukosea, lakini kama nilikukosea, naomba unisamehe. It is not that I am rubbishing what you're saying. It's I'm coming to explain where I was coming from.
Right.
But if in doing all those things I was doing, I actually ended up wronging you and hurting you, I apologize. It is not saying the but is, but I am justifying. It is, I'm explaining, and I did not realize that I'm hurting you. But
if I did, although
if you think about it, watch it now the English. Think about it in Swahili. Think about it
in all vernacular. But I truly
languages.
believe
maybe culturally.
I still think way back maybe there was. I want to believe our culture and customs allowed for it. I think somewhere along the way that got lost in translation, and now we're back where we don't know. Because, you know, you think about the significant things that culture provided for. Accountability, remorse, forgiveness. There was a lot of that. It's essentially, it's who we are. I just think we've forgotten that. And now ego has become the thing.
Right.
And because of that, I can't say sorry. I always say, if Kenya could learn, if people could learn to be accountable, I feel like you'd fix a lot of the issues that we see by simply acknowledging that you have wronged someone. That is very rare in this country. Very. Across the board, corporate, everywhere. New generations
you
now
always,
are the ones...
need a third party.
What do you mean you need a third party?
You always need a third party to actually make you come out and say, okay, I wronged you.
You don't always need.
So
I think what you need to learn...
That's part of the problem.
That's part of the problem.
And
I'm saying
Kadere
even
spoke to
culturally, in all those things that you're saying, even traditionally, there was, you're taken somewhere and then someone else was there, sit you down.
That's true.
And that's the point when you apologize in the presence of somebody else. But first of all, the case is put before you, like, this is what you've done, this is what you've done, this is how you hurt me, this is how you hurt me, and then the other person says, you see, you actually wronged this person and you need to apologize.
And then hopefully it's a teachable moment.
And then now, that's the point where now you say, I apologize. We've got another call on the line. Hello, good morning. Who's this, Wycliffe? Elias. Elias, good morning.
Elias, yeah. Habari asubuhi.
Mzuri sana, habari yako?
Mzuri sana.
Habari ya Kilicho?
Mzuri, ningependa kuchangia kidogo.
Tuendelee.
Kuhusu msamaha ya rais.
Tuendelee, Elias.
Maoni yangu ni ya kwamba mimi nilikuwa naomba kama serikali ama rais wetu mpendwa Uhuru Ruto angetenga siku ya kuomba msamaha kama baba wetu wa taifa. Ikuwe National Forgiveness Day. Na ite vijana. Si ile kusimama alafu unasema tu kama kuna mahali nilikosea naomba msamaha. Hiyo kitu ilifeli kabisa, ni kama hiyo ndio inaleta shida.
The if.
If. Sasa yeye angetenga siku ikuwe National Forgiveness Day na aite vijana, aite viongozi, aite kama watu wa kanisa. Na tukae chini state moja kwa moja nilifanye hivi, taifa lilikuwa namna hii, vijana mlikosea hapa. Serikali tulienda wrong hapa. Alafu hiyo vitu wanaelezea vijana wana understand, unaelewa?
Yes.
Vijana wakishaelewa nao watoe maoni yao pia. Alafu wakuje waunganishe pamoja, wachambue maneno, viongozi wa kanisa wapitie ndani. Alafu sasa wakileta kwa meza inakuwa forgiveness ile inaeleweka.
Asante, Elias.
Thank
you very much. Asante
sana.
And that's what I was saying.
Yes.
You see that process?
Yes.
It's a process
Yes.
that involves somebody else. So there's this.
Yeah, but I feel like that part is the reconciliation.
Talk,
the apology, then the reconciliation is...
And that's the point. You can't apologize and then reconcile. It has to be that process. We talk, let the truth come out, let everybody speak their truth, let there be an acknowledgement, and then an apology, and then now reconciliation, shake hands. Or a third party comes and says, now, by the way, you should do A, B, C, D too. That's the justice bit of it.
Right.
And the reparation and all. But there is, you are here, you are together, you are discussing, and you're saying, I was doing this and the other, and I felt that I was doing this, I was responding, I was reacting to this. This is now the state saying, this is what we were doing, this is why we are reacting. The protesters and Gen Z coming out and saying, this is how this is what we're going through, this is what we're facing. Okay, I understand you. So I apologize for what I did. I understand, okay, here I crossed the barrier here. I can see the sense, I can see the point that you're making. I also apologize for crossing the barrier. Do you understand where I was coming from? I understand where you're coming from. Do you understand where I was coming from? I can see where you're coming from. Let's apologize. Let's reconcile. Let's move.
And in all that, self-audit, you truly mean it. That's what I feel is lacking. Is sometimes you'll say it because it's like, oh man, kuna hiki tu inaitwa truth, justice. Now I guess I have to say sorry. Then at sijui tutakuwa kwa hii breakfast. Then we'll have to now. I really like how our two fixers, one has talked about a day, the other one has said, no, like a day for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And this is what it will look like. It's because then you feel like now that's the process. And the truth is, have you truly apologized? Because if you haven't, what difference does it make? You're just playing to the tune because you have to.
Yes.
You're
ticking a box.
You're ticking the box. Some of the people who caused, who actually killed and were found guilty of killing certain activists, for example, in South Africa, today, they have no remorse. They're in their 90s.
Yeah.
At least like in Nazi Germany, some of them were sentenced at 101 years old. That is justice.
As they
Whether or not they feel like they were is different. And I think that's a problem, is somebody can smell when you're not genuine about your apology. Some quick feedback. This prayer breakfast was a shame to the nation. That's Edward Derry. I watched it and I was distraught. Some of our fellow youth are still missing. If they're truly sorry, they should ensure that they're all released. The Kikombe, apologies from leaders paint an image of remorse, but apology with accountability is integrity. We don't have leaders with integrity. The cup that spilled must be lifted by the one who poured it. Kikombe. Please list the number of metaphors you have around cups.
About cups.
Just list them. The problem Mr. President did, he used if. That's Bernard Okeo. Paul Minor, kama hawakuomba msamaha baada ya mauaji, that's for 2007-2008 paka sasa. Kuna waadhiriwa wa vita hivyo vya 2007 wangali wanateseka, msitarajie waombe msamaha. If you haven't, then the rogue apology was watered down, has watered down the essence of the power breakfast. That hypocrisy is on another level. It can power our SGR for years.
SGR inaweza run too on hypocrisy.
Alone.
On hypocrisy.
When you asked about Kikuyu, I went to Wemwega, because sometimes that's also
an apology.
An apology.
After
So I was
beefing,
just about to say that, then I'm like, actually, it's not.
It's not.
but
it's
that's
an
what
African
is.
thing.
It's an African thing.
So
are you well?
Wemwega.
Are you good? See, you're good. I have gone.
Umekula. Sasa utakula. Utakula sasa. That's an apology, but no, not in real sense.
So we have to shift the culture of apologies, and it starts with us.
It's a global thing.
Yes.
I want to take you into what happened in Kenya before 1963, and especially at the height of the Mau Mau insurgency, 1952 to 1963. Okay? Many people were killed, many were maimed, many were injured. A lot of atrocities were committed by the Queen's government. Okay? Now, does anybody apologize? The UK government has not apologized. Nope. The word sorry has never come out. The then Foreign and Commonwealth Minister, the Right Honorable William Hague, went to the House of Commons and spoke in 2013. And he basically just read a statement in Parliament. He said, during the emergency period, widespread violence was committed by both sides and most of the victims were Kenyan. Many thousands of Mau Mau members were killed, while the Mau Mau themselves were responsible for the deaths of over 2,000 people, including 200 casualties among the British regiments and police. Emergency regulations were introduced, political organizations were banned, prohibited areas were created, provisions for detention without trial were attached. It goes on and on and on. He says, we recognize that British personnel were called upon to serve in difficult and dangerous circumstances. Many members of the colonial service contributed to establishing the institutions that underpin Kenya today, and we acknowledge their contribution. However, I'd like to make clear now and for the first time, on behalf of Her Majesty's government, that we understand the pain and grievances felt by those who were involved in the events of the emergency in Kenya. The British government recognizes that Kenyans were subject to torture and other forms of ill treatment at the hands of the colonial administration. The British government sincerely regrets that these abuses took place and that they marred Kenya's progress towards independence. Torture and ill treatment are abhorrent violations of human dignity, which we unreservedly condemn. Is there an apology in this statement by the British government?
No. Neither from French governments. We can keep listing.
Yeah.
All right.
And also, I think because an apology forces reparation.
Yes, that's exactly
reparations.
That's admitting liability
everywhere
equals reparations.
Everywhere there's a consequence for that. There is shame. There is consequence for it. Okay. And this is what this comes and says. I interviewed the current High Commissioner just before the King came for the state visit and asked, so this is what the British government has done. Is His Majesty going to apologize to the people of Kenya? He's like, that's a difficult one because of the implications and what that means.
Yes.
The British Empire was across the globe. Start one, you open.
And that's okay.
It's
okay to open that can of worms,
but also what it means. And that's why I say, even for President William Ruto, an apology should not just come from him as William Ruto. He should begin a process of relooking at what happened last year.
Yes.
And if that ends up with an apology, let the process lead to that. That a system ensures that the head of state, on behalf of the state, apologizes to its people, and then the consequences thereafter follow.
Right.
But to expect that William Ruto can just stand and issue a statement in Parliament and say, I'm sorry, I think that he would also be going beyond.
And globally, as long as we don't do that, the world will remind you of the atrocities. There will be no peace.
Peace is not the absence of chaos, guys.
Yes, it isn't. Breaking up or breaking free, rethinking divorce, is it failure or new beginning or form of growth? Today, your world has decided to go there.
Is it breaking free? Is it
breaking up or breaking free?
Is it a failure of new begin? Oh, is it failure
or new beginning?
Or new beginnings? Okay.
That is up next. Whichever what it is, say sorry. And don't say sorry with if. Be accountable. It's hard. It's very hard. But go into that dark basement within you and be like, Aya.
Sorry and move on.
Sorry, not sorry and move on. Thank you for watching Fixing the Nation. Janet Mbugua, Mariam Bisha, Eric Latif. We'll be back here again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Bye.